is Almost Game Day. I'm your host, Sean Green. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Friday, September 4th, 2020. We have been trying to get this show up for about 4 months. Over summer and quarantine, we were working together as a collective unit to get HTFN finally up, and it's finally here. So I'm so thankful that you tune in on this Friday to join me on Almost Game Day. With that being said, let's get into the first topic, all right? Cam Newton officially is the Patriots' starting quarterback for Week 1. He beat out Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham for the job. Many people saw this coming, but to a lot of Patriots fans, it wasn't a quick, let's hand him the baton, right? This was a little bit of a quarterback competition, but right at the beginning, you saw Jarrett Stidham and Cam Newton really competing. A lot of people said that Jarrett Stidham looked really good in camp. He looked like he was putting Cam a run for his money. He was making the throws. He was really accurate. A lot of people said for the first couple days of practice, Jarrett Stidham looked like the best player on the field. But then they kind of took a decline. Jarrett Stidham went to the hospital for a leg injury, came back to practice the next couple days, but he was very limited. He didn't do a lot of, 11 on 11, 7 on 7s, and that ultimately, I think, hurt him and lost him the job in the long run. But also announced yesterday was Cam Newton was announced as a captain on the Patriots. Now, for those of you who are not big Patriots followers or big Patriots fans, usually Patriots captains are notorious for being on the team for many years, putting in the time with the Patriots, and making a presence known in a long tenured time with the Patriots. Cam Newton's been there 2 months, guys. 2 months. So for anybody that is looking at that and like, wow, that's pretty impressive, yes, it is. Let me tell you what I think that tells me for the most part. I think that tells me that Cam Newton has made a huge impact on the players and staff over in New England. You see it every day. He's out there dancing on the practice field, acting so happy, acting excited, getting secret handshakes with all of his teammates, even talking with Bill Belichick. So I think it's made such an impact on the team that they had to make him the starter and a captain. And I think it's only going to help the camaraderie. When you're starting quarterbacks, your captain, and they believe you can go into battle with them, that's very important. Now, playing Miami Week 1, I'll talk about it next week with my football picks because we're so close to football, guys. I can almost taste it. Cam Newton is a different type of quarterback than Tom Brady. Now, usually Miami gives New England problems based off of, number one, Brian Flores. Used to coach in New England, de facto defensive coordinator, and then, of course, Miami signs a bunch of New England players. For instance, Kyle Van Noy listed last offseason going to Miami. So Miami is notorious for an upset game for New England. Now, luckily, it is in Foxborough at the beginning of the year, but when they travel to Miami, that's usually the trap game. But like many of you know, back last year, they came to New England, Miami came to New England and beat them, and it ultimately cost New England the second seed in the playoffs and hurt them really bad. But if you look at now with Cam as the starting quarterback, Miami has to scheme for a bunch of different things. If it was Jarrett Stidham, I would say New England probably would lose the game just because Jarrett Stidham does a lot of the same things Tom Brady does skill-wise. He's not going to go run for plays every couple plays, right? Cam Newton is that type of player. If he doesn't see anything down the field, he's going to go run for that first down. So Miami is going to struggle here, and I think they're going to struggle big because I think Cam Newton has been really getting this playbook in, and I'm thinking New England's going to be making a lot of plays for this guy to really shine in this offense. So I'm really excited to see how he's going to play Week 1, but the one thing I do want to emphasize, they do love Jarrett Stidham. I think the Patriots are really fond on Jarrett Stidham. I think they think he is the future if Cam doesn't pan out or they don't want to pay Cam. If Cam Newton starts to struggle within the first 4 or 5 weeks, don't be surprised to see Jarrett Stidham pop in there and take that starting job. They're not going to let Cam go 16, 17 weeks struggling or not playing at a really high level. That's just not how the Patriots do things. So if something's not working that well, then I think you see Jarrett Stidham. So don't be surprised if the Patriots go like 2-3 and Cam stats aren't that great to see Jarrett Stidham kind of push into that role a little bit as the Patriots starter. All right, so now we move on to a former Patriots quarterback, Tom Brady. And Tom Brady just got a new weapon, Leonard Fournette from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And honestly, I think I wrote it in my notes, the embarrassment of riches of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will make any NFL fan sick to their stomach. It reminds me a lot of the Patriots days when they would basically, a bunch of these teams would cut one of their best players for salary cap issues or, conduct related to the team, and then they would release them. And the Patriots would pick them up, and the players would want to come because they have Tom Brady. It's happening again with Tampa Bay. Leonard Fournette that had interest from the Patriots and from Tampa Bay, and he chose to go to Tampa Bay. Contract was for a basically base salary of $2 million, max with incentives of $3.5 million. I think the incentives are really based on, number one, playing time and rush yards. Now, Bruce Arians came out the other day and said that Ronald Jones is going to still be the starter. But let's be real here, guys. Like, come on. Why? If you think Ronald Jones is your back of the future, if you believe Ronald Jones is your guy, then why sign Leonard Fournette? It doesn't make much sense. You signed LaShawn McCoy, and we're like, okay, we get that. Still doesn't, make a lot of sense since you have a couple other backs on the roster, but maybe you still do believe in Ronald Jones. Maybe LaShawn McCoy is just a backup piece, right? Well, then you go out and you sign Leonard Fournette, who, let's be real here, guys, 7th in rushing yards last year. This guy's not like a bad running back. I'll explain why I don't love him in a second, but 7th in rush yards last year, and then 5th in receptions by a running back. That's what Tom Brady loves, a guy that can do both, a guy that can run, and then a guy that can pass out of the backfield with the HB pass. That's what he likes. So when Bruce Arians says, oh, yep, Ronald Jones is still our starter, come on. We know, give it a week or two, and Leonard Fournette will take over that job. Don't be surprised if Ronald Jones gets shipped in the middle of the year to get a draft pick or something similar to that. Now, Tampa Bay doesn't have a lot of cap space going forward. Listen, they're going to have to pay a lot of people. But it wouldn't surprise me at all to get him off of their books. They have LaShawn McCoy. They have Leonard Fournette. They have enough pieces at running back to make this thing work. He's not trusted by the Bucs. He's just not. And I think the Buccaneers are making sure that they get out of the NFC South. If they can get out of the NFC South, they look golden. But when you have to play the New Orleans Saints twice a year, it's not pretty. They are going to have to compete. You'll see it in the first game. We're really going to see how this Tampa Bay team meshes well together. I don't know if it will mesh well the first week. I think it's going to take some time. Just like any team, you're bringing a bunch of superstars that usually get a bunch of touches together and hoping that they work out. Gronk hasn't played in a year. I get everybody wants to keep saying, like, oh my God, great said I never get it. But still, he hasn't played an actual game in a year. He has to get his legs out under him for a little bit, okay? Then running back-wise, just take your pick. Tampa Bay has an embarrassment of riches. But if they don't figure out how to work those embarrassment of riches together, Tampa Bay's not going to be a 12-4, 13-3 football team like many people think. They'll be a 10-6, 9-7. That's what that record will be. So for Tampa Bay fans, listen, you've got a good 2 years. So I would figure it out now. And don't just sign a bunch of people to sign him. I'm sure Bruce Arians has an idea of how to use him, but come on. Don't sit here and tell me Ronald Jones is going to be your starter. Maybe for week 1 and 2 just to keep the outside world happy. But when you get a player like Leonard Fournette, you're going to start the guy. Now, the problem with Leonard Fournette, like I said, is consistency. I said this on Just Winning on Tuesday. Leonard Fournette, yes, though he's 7th in rush yards, and by the way, he only played 15 games, so that's with not even playing a full 16-game season. He ran for 1,152 yards and on 265 touches. So it's really impressive and it is productive on that aspect. The touchdown numbers were low last year with only 3 rushing touchdowns last year. For a top 10 running back, 3 rushing touchdowns is very low. What that tells me is he couldn't get it in on the goal line very much. He would get stopped, and they would have to throw the ball, empty possessions, kick field goals. Leonard Fournette was 5th in receiving yards, 7th in rush yards. But if you go look at his stats, they're very scattered, right? One week, he'll have a 200 rushing yard game. Then the next week, he'll have like a 58 or 60 yard rushing game. As a running back, people love to see consistency. Listen, if you're going to give me 80 yards a game, I want to see a consistent 80 yards on the same amount of touches. All right? Leonard Fournette, if he could stay consistent, the guy's a top 5 back. But he's just never been a consistent running back in the NFL for people to put him up there in the likes of Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. But I don't think that's going to change much here. The problem with Tampa Bay, and it's the problem when you have a team with so many good players, you're bound for one player or 2 players to get less touches. Running backs aren't going to get as many touches as the wide receiver and tight ends. Now, again, if Leonard Fournette was the featured back and he was getting 20 touches a game, then yes, his production would skyrocket. Tom Brady would get him the ball, and that would be the end of it. But he's not the featured back. He's in a backfield with a 3-headed horse in LaShawn, Jones III, and him. It'll be interesting. We'll see as the weeks progress how this competition will play out. It's very interesting, but I think nobody should look twice and think that Ronald Jones is going to be the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the next couple weeks. It's going to end up being Leonard Fournette, 150%. All right, we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm talking with Nick Geddes from HTF Bets about last night's playoff games. Wow, how about that Celtics-Raptors game? Oh my God. And then Clippers-Nuggets. What were the Nuggets doing? It's almost game day. Come on back.
How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for a future success? And do you maybe have a favorite failure of yours?
Favorite failure? Well, I mean, there's many, but I think there was a time in my life where I was living in Germany. I'd lived in Germany for a year. You might have read that in the article, actually. And I remember coming back from Germany and having the goal in mind to like work in baseball, but really being completely resigned that there's no way I could possibly make it happen. I just didn't have, the technical coding know-how to be like a numbers cruncher in a front office. I didn't really have like any connections in the industry to speak of. And so I just felt like completely dejected. And, I had this YouTube channel that had 800 subscribers. And the first time I made a baseball bits, which is, like you said, the flagship series, I probably got like 200 views or something like that. But then I kept making them. And I think by the time I got to the third one, it just blew up. And then that's kind of where I got to where I am now. But so I don't think, my journey is a very lucky one. I faced, some degree of adversity, but in many ways I got very lucky. The YouTube algorithm can expose your work to a lot of people really quickly. And that's both a blessing and a curse. We kind of live and die by it. But I got lucky, and then that's what kind of set me up for future successes.
All right, welcome back to Almost Gameday. As I said, we have Nick Geddes here from HTF Bets. HTF Bets is going to air its debut episode next week on Thursday, right before Thursday Night Football. So make sure to tune in to that. Nick, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, hanging in there, and we saw some great basketball last night. And I'm ready to dive into that.
Yeah, let's talk about the basketball. Two totally different games that took place. One, you have the Celtics Raptors. What a game. Now, the Celtics obviously have taken a strong lead in the series. They just look like they're overpowering the Raptors. But obviously, at the end of the game, what a play. OG Anunoby makes a crazy three with 0.5 seconds left. I don't even know how you get a three off in 0.5 seconds. But they had Taco Fall in there trying to cover the inbounds play. What did you see from that game that might give you confidence moving forward for the Raptors?
Well, I think Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry stepped up big time, and you need your guards to play really well in the playoffs and start shooting. And I think Lowry and VanVleet did that. They were even able to get to the rim because Pascal Siakam, it's no secret he hasn't played his best basketball in this bubble and especially in this playoff series. He's been pretty much neutralized by the Boston Celtics, and kudos to the Celtics for doing that. Neutralize the best player and force others to step up. Well, Kyle Lowry's been in a million playoff series. Fred VanVleet had a lot of experience from last year's playoff run. They both stepped up last night, and VanVleet specifically had a very clutch basket to the rim to tie the game originally before Kemba Walker made the great pass where we thought the game was over. And then Kyle Lowry, it was just an inbound play, but that's a very hard pass to make over a guy who's 7'5", 7'6". That pass was perfect. So, it was a great shot by Anunoby, but we have to give kudos to Lowry and VanVleet for what they did to step up. But honestly, nobody really deserved to lose that game. It was a dogfight all the way. I think it was a great basketball game, but the Raptors is a big win for them, and it gives them a boost going into Game 4.
Yeah, I think Kyle Lowry said Taco Fall's like 7'12", which I would see for Kyle Lowry. That makes a lot of sense for how tall he is. But to make that pass, it's absolutely incredible that he even got it to the inbound. A lot of people online are saying that this was luck, that it was lucky for the Raptors, and that this is just going to be the Celtics series from here on out. Do you think it was luck? And if you don't think it was luck, what can the Raptors do in Game 4 to make sure that they even up this series and tie it up?
Well, in Game 2, it was the same story where it was a dogfight back and forth, and the Celtics were able to get it out at the end. This time, it was the Raptors' turn. So I wouldn't say that's luck. I think they've been evenly matched for 2 of the 3 games so far in this series. So I think that shows you that the skill level is pretty same, the talent's the same. There's great coaching on both sides, and there's great experience on both sides. And it's just going to be a battle of who can pull it out. I think this series is going to go deep. I'm expecting 6 or 7 games, but the Raptors have got to get Pascal Siakam going if they're going to continue to do better, because they're already right there with Boston with Lowry and VanVleet going. They've got to get him going, and they've got to continue to get guys like Norman Powell, coming off the bench to shoot the 3, as he showed a little bit yesterday. They got to get guys like that going if they want to compete with Boston, because Boston's got a great luxury of having Tatum and Brown and Kemba Walker, and having 3 guys like that who at any point can drop 25 to 30 is a scary thing. So the Raptors are going to have to get Siakam going so he can do his part.
And they don't even have Hayward. Like, imagine Hayward being healthy. That's a scary team by itself. So if Milwaukee got out of this series against the Heat, the Celtics looked primed and ready. If they can get out of this series with the Raptors, they look primed and ready to make a finals run. Pascal Siakam, you said that he's really struggled during this series. He hasn't found his footing. Last playoff series last year, he looked unstoppable. Do you think that was a product of Kawhi being there? And do you think Pascal is just not as productive as he would have been if you have a superstar on the team?
Well, I think you're asking a lot of Pascal Siakam to carry a team right now. Kawhi Leonard is able to do that, and Kawhi Leonard's a two-way prototype small forward. And Pascal Siakam's, a power forward, and you don't see many power forwards nowadays that are leading teams to playoff series wins. I think that's where a lot of the struggle comes from. It's easier to neutralize somebody like that and force them to the perimeter and take shots. And that's what the Celtics have done. They've made it to where Siakam has to take tough shots. When he's gotten inside, they've made it hard on him inside there. So I think that's just great coaching by Brad Stevens. Neutralize the best player and force everybody else to beat you.
What's the one thing that the Celtics can do better in Game 4 to make sure that last-second shot doesn't even happen? What can they do to make sure that they close the Raptors out early?
Well, I think they've got to contain Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, the guards, better. I think you got to have Kemba Walker playing better defense. Jaylen Brown, he's already a pretty good defensive player, but I think they have to just remain on the focus because I don't know what happened on that play, but it just seemed like a big miscommunication. And Jaylen Brown was very frustrated after and said it was basically garbage what just happened. And they just seemed like they just lost focus there at the end. So they've got to maintain that focus all the way through. I think maybe when they hit that shot, they had that feeling of, oh, we did it, and you didn't do it, and it was proved. So they have to maintain that focus, and they've got to be able to cover the guards better and play better defense.
Fingertips away, Jaylen Brown. Fingertips away. Nick, no, I know. Tell me about it. I'm going to ask you, I know I'm putting you on the spot. Who do you think wins Saturday? Celtics, Raptors?
I think the Raptors are going to win it. I think they got some fuel in them now. I think they have, I don't know how much anybody believes in momentum carrying over from game to game. I believe in it a little bit, and I think the Raptors are going to get a little spark out of that. It's too talented of a team, too good of a coach, too good of an organization for me to let them just go down 3-1. I think they bring it to 2-2, and like I said earlier, I think this series is primed to go at least 6, but I think 7 games probably is on the table here.
All right, now the other game that happened last night, Clippers-Nuggets. I'll be honest, the Clippers, the Nuggets-Jazz series, after watching that, I said, the Clippers better watch out, because whatever team comes out of that series is going to give the Clippers a run for their money. And I ultimately said the Clippers just don't look like they want to be there. Kawhi looks like he's not interested. Paul George has been struggling. So I said, whoever comes out of that Nuggets-Jazz series is going to be primed to probably go to the Western Conference Finals. After last night, I am completely flipping that take on its head. It looked like the Nuggets just are not matched up well, and they look like they are tired from that last series. What were your initial thoughts on the game?
I thought they were outcoached. Doc Rivers, we all know, one of the best coaches in the league. He put in a great coaching job, great game plan together for the Clippers, and it started with stopping Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray was scoring at ease in that Jazz series. Everywhere he was on the floor, nobody on Utah could guard him. They didn't have a system to guard him, and they were just letting them put 40 and 50 up. Doc Rivers, I think, said, you know what, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to force somebody else to make shots. And I think that's kind of been my downfall in Denver is I don't like the scoring depth that they have outside of Jokic and Murray. They had a few guys step up early, but it kind of faded away because Doc Rivers just adjusted. And at the end of the day, the Clippers just have some great defensive dynamos. And all throughout that game, nobody else was guarding Jamal Murray except for Kawhi Leonard and Patrick Beverley. How many teams can say they have 2 world-class defenders like that to put on your best player, neutralize them? And we saw it worked. 12 points for Jamal Murray. You forced Jokic to take a lot of shots he really wasn't comfortable taking, and you forced a lot of other guys to try to take shots like Gary Harris and Jeremy Grant, and it just ran out of steam. And offensively, the Clippers just looked like a well-oiled machine. Kawhi was getting to the middle at ease, and he was hitting that mid-range, that fadeaway that he loves to do. He had that working. He was kicking it out to Marcus Morris. He was just making so many great plays and facilitating, and they were getting so much out of Paul George last night, who I thought was very impressive, especially on the defense end. He had a great effort on a lot of plays. So I just think this was just an example of Doc Rivers putting on coaching excellence and showing why he's one of the best in the NBA.
Do you think it's an effort thing for the Nuggets? I understand you were in a 7-game series. They put up 80 points in a Game 7 where you're going back and forth. Defense is high. Do you just think it's an effort problem and not also just a coaching problem?
Well, I think some fatigue probably played some into it. I think I saw, Game 6, Game 7 in that series against Utah. You could kind of see it looked like both teams, but especially Denver and Jamal Murray just looked exhausted. And Jamal Murray, you saw the video that went viral where he didn't even know they were playing. They thought he had more than one day off. And that's a lot to ask for a team like that, a young team like that, to turn around and play a behemoth, a team that, players who have been there, done that on that Clipper team, to step right in and try to be competitive. And kudos to them. They came out red hot, but it just, once again, second half started, it's like everything hit the fan for them. And they showed that they didn't have the legs to go with the Clippers, who came in with 7 or 8 days of rest. So that just showed a lot too. And Kawhi looked energized. You said it looked like earlier in the bubble, they didn't look like they wanted to be there. Well, the thing with great world-class players like that, they can turn it on any time. And certainly last night they had it going, and Denver just couldn't keep up. So I'm very concerned for Denver going forward in the series.
Who wins Game 2? I think I know the answer, but Clippers, Nuggets.
Yeah, I think it's the Clippers. I struggle to find a way that Denver's going to win a game here. Maybe they'll sneak one out of them. But the Clippers were the better team coming into the series, I thought. And I think last night, it's only one game, but I mean, that's a statement, and that's going to be very tough, very, very tough for Denver to bounce back.
Now, very quickly, I just want to ask you quick picks on the game tonight. You have Bucs Heat. Who do you got in that game?
I think the Bucs are going to draw one back here. I think Miami's been a great story. Miami's playing very well. They've proven that they can compete with the best, but I think Milwaukee's going to steal one back here. Giannis has to find a way. It's going to be on his shoulders, which it always is, but you're going to have to get Chris Middleton to step up. They have forced Chris Middleton to try to be the guy that beats them, and it's working for Miami. So I'm looking out for Chris Middleton to step up and finally be a good foil to Giannis and win Game 3.
And then Lakers-Rockets. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the Lakers here. This is a series that I think we all agree is one we're really looking at. It's going to be a fun series, a lot of stars. But I'm very concerned on how the Rockets are going to cover Anthony Davis. They play a lot of small ball. It's very exciting, but I don't think they have an answer. And it's not PJ Tucker down low or Robert Covington that's going to stop Anthony Davis. So look for LeBron to be facilitating a lot, because I think they're going to stack the deck on him. And maybe some guys like Kuzma and Alex Caruso and guys of that nature can step up as well. But I think the Lakers are going to take Game 1.
I'm going to give my thoughts on the game in segment 4 for my picks, my segment I'm going to do each week. So you'll hear my thoughts on the games in segment 4. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on. Again, HTF Bets is going to air its debut episode next Thursday with Thursday Night Football. So don't forget to tune into that. Nick, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Almost Game Day. As you know, we have the one and only Charles Davis from CBS Sports. Charles, thank you so much for spending a couple minutes with me. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Congratulations on your show, and all the best to you for continued success.
Thank you, man. You too. And obviously, football's almost here again, right? And you obviously, during the crazy quarantine time, made the move from Fox to CBS. My big question is, you were really doing NFC games for about 14 years. Those were the games you were calling. Now, obviously, you were on NFL Network and covered a bunch of teams and the people on the draft. But how different has it been to start preparing to cover the AFC teams full-time now? How has that been different?
Probably not as different as it would appear on paper for this reason. One, in recent years, the NFL has done a lot more crossover games between networks because, you got to supply a lot of different groups now, right? You get Thursday Night Football, which pulls inventory. You got Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and then, of course, CBS and Fox. So with everyone pulling inventory, trying to balance games, I just feel like the league has looked at it and said, we've got to try and get this thing balanced out a little bit more. So we've had some crossover. So I've done AFC games, not just where AFC teams are playing NFC, but some pure AFC versus AFC matchups. And, I thought about it this offseason and realized there are very few teams in the league I have not seen, in my career. I think it's like 2 or 3, period. So not as big of a deal that way. But in terms of concentration, what we'll see, yeah, that'll be a little bit different. The NFC East might be more of a concentration for my last, X number of years, 3 or 4 years. Now it might be more of an AFC South or an AFC North or something like that. Who knows? We'll just have to see how it plays out. But, when you cover the league as a whole and have to know about the league, you get to know them, but you just don't see them nearly as often as I'm going to now.
And now you have Ian Eagle with you as your partner. How has that been like, meshing with him and kind of finding your guys' rhythm as you're going into this new season?
Well, I think it's going to be fantastic. He's one of the best in the business, and I'm leaving one of the best in the business in Kevin Burkhardt. So who's the lucky one here? That means it's me.
Yeah.
Just tells you how fortunate I am to work with some great partners, and I've worked with some great ones in the past besides Kevin, including Gus Johnson and Dick Stockton and you name it. I've did, God, when I sit back and think about it, pretty fortunate,
Yeah.
So, and I haven't named all of them, and I hope those people won't be upset. It's just, in the interest of time in this interview, but these people, everyone I've worked with has just been phenomenal. So when you put it in those terms and you think of it that way, I'm pretty lucky. Ian is, of course, at the top of his game, just like Kevin is. It's my job to make sure that I keep up with him, you know?
Yeah.
And with pandemic and everything like that, maybe we haven't had a chance to see each other as much. But meshing, getting to know each other, we've worked very hard at doing that. And I'm really excited to be his partner. And as I said before, hope to be up to the task.
I think a lot of people are excited. You see it on social media or just talking with people about the new broadcasting teams. You guys are at the top of the list in terms of excitement, especially with both your notorieties and how you do call games. People are really excited to see that. My one really big question is, a lot of the people I've been talking to have been really interested in how you guys are going to call the games and all the protocols. Have they gone through some of that with you guys yet, and how that's all going to work out?
Well, I think that a lot of it is still being worked out. I think we've seen, if we look for clues, you watch what we've seen from the NBA and Major League Baseball so far and PGA Tour golf, and what you're seeing are, people on site. You're seeing people away from site, but above all, you're seeing people trying to stay healthy and remain safe. So we're going to work through those protocols as well and look forward to being there and doing the games. We're all hoping, obviously, to be on site. That would be great, but that remains to be seen, and it's up to our bosses at CBS, the NFL, and everybody's in charge of making sure we all stay safe. But I think we're all, working towards being there, being on site, and then we'll see what goes from there.
Now, I'm sure you were disappointed when the NFL, canceled the preseason games, because I know you usually go to Tennessee and you call the Tennessee Titans preseason games. Do you think, I don't know how this is going to end up, but do you think there's going to be a significant change into preseason from years now until however, and how they do those? Do you think they will lower the games, or do you think they'll get rid of those preseason games altogether after this year?
Sean, that's a great question, and again, remains to be seen by all of us. I do know that, from what we've seen in discussions about a labor contract going forward, there's been discussions about lowering the number of preseason games. So that may have already been in the works. Whether they all go away from this year forward, we don't know. We really don't know. I get the sense that people would like to have preseason games and would like to have them on the docket. And, a lot of it is the lower round draft choices, the undrafted free agents, the surprise people, not quite the same opportunity to make an impact. I think I was watching Hard Knocks the other night, and Anthony Lynn, head coach of the Chargers, was talking about Austin Eckler in the fourth preseason game, the last preseason game his rookie year, put on a show and forced them to keep him on the roster. And now he's their mainstay at running back. And he said, if we didn't have that game, we never would have kept Austin Eckler. So people will have to make decisions, a little bit tougher in the preseason that way. What will happen moving forward remains to be seen based on what the labor contract is going to say between the players and of course the league. So the union and the league. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But it is a little strange this year not having preseason, getting into your regular rhythm, calling preseason games, getting out, seeing people, all those things. But something? That's the same for all of us. This is not something that's just happening to me. This is all of us collective. So, when they talk about a level playing field, quote unquote, we're all on it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And you look at it with all the other teams, like especially teams that have questions at quarterback and need to see some different things. I think the Patriots come to mind, like they have 3 quarterbacks that they want to see who would be the new starter to be the successor to Tom Brady, and they really don't have many options to see them in real game situations. So those teams that are trying to find those niches will be very interesting.
That's a good point too, because shaking things out in the preseason in live games, we know they don't count for record, but they count for organizing a team, finding out how a team responds to a quarterback. Because there's an old adage that I believe in, and I believe in it on just about every level. If coaches just step back and listen to the team picks the quarterback. And that's based on how the team responds to that quarterback, how they move the ball, how they score points, all those things. And sometimes the so-called lesser talented guy might be the guy that the team responds to better. So that's where that competition plays out. So, they'll have to do it different ways. Sean. They'll have to do it in practice, charting things every day, and tell the guys, hey, it's competition period, guys. Let's see how we do. They'll have to do it during their scrimmage time. I think every team will have a scrimmage or 2 or 3, depending on how they want to look at it, whether it's full contact in the upper body only, just thud. They'll do all the different things, but they'll want to go full speed all out to try and shake down some of those positions. And obviously the quarterback being one of them. And you identified New England. We're all looking at that one because that's a big-time deal. Cam Newton in New England, you don't think of him as anything but a starter. But for the longest time after the draft, when New England didn't take a quarterback or sign one, we thought Jarrett Stidham would be their starter. So you're exactly right. There is a competition going on there. Bill Belichick, of course, playing his cards close to the vest. And that place, among others, will have those types of competition. And the quarterbacks always lead our attention span.
No, there's no doubt. And it's going to be really exciting to see how the teams figure out their starters and stuff like that with no preseason. But when I originally got this interview with you, Charles, I really want to talk a lot about the NFL season, and everything is coming at us so quick. We got a week or two until football starts. But it really hit me hard a couple weeks ago. The situation, the shooting of Jacob Blake. I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't really have a sit-down, honest conversation with you, because I don't know when I'm going to get a conversation with you again. So I really would love to have an honest and open conversation with you about, I'm in college right now. I go to UCF. How can, number one, young adults go into their everyday lives and make change? And what do you think needs to be done in society to stop this issue?
Well, Sean, these are great questions, and it's all it's in our grasp, all of us, right? All of us have a responsibility to make this place a better place, to make this world a better world. I can't sit here and feel comfortable, telling you how things should be, have to be, what have you. If you've seen on CBS, we did a thing of 846 where a number of us talked about our experiences in our time. I got a minute to do that. There's also, I believe, a 30-second version. And for me, it was very simple, what it says in the Pledge of Allegiance, I thought kind of encapsulates everything for all of us, right? That we should all have the same rights, the same freedoms, the same equality to be ourselves, et cetera. So that's the big one for me. And, I know it gets very divided and people start to think, okay, well, is this life more valuable than that life? I don't think anyone's ever thought otherwise, that every life does matter. Absolutely does. Does it feel like it's a tough time right now? Obviously, for us as Black Americans, most definitely. But I think that as long as we start concentrating on the idea of all of us getting right, all of us doing all the right things together, I think we'll have a chance, Sean. I really do. And I think that, your generation is going to be a huge part of that, because I'm seeing much more of your generation having empathy for all people, for all, orientations, for all races, for all thought processes, for all how people want to live their life, which is what we're all trying to get to, I believe, and what we all want. And that's going to be huge. But, let's just make sure we're all taking care of each other, not at the expense of any groups, not at the expense, or something happens and it affects your world, and then something happens in someone else's world, and go, that's not my thing. I don't have it for them. Let's have it for each other. That's where I get disappointed, where we get, somebody gets a focus or something happens, and rightfully so. And then when something happens with someone else, they're crying out for help over there. I don't want to get distracted. No, we got to be distracted for each other. We got to be distracted all across the board and keep reaching out. So I'm not about to give a lecture on that. I just think that, if you go back to that, that should tell you a lot about where I come from. If you go back to the CBS thing, but the rest of it, I'm counting on you, counting on your generation, counting on my generation, counting on older generations, all of us who are trying to do the right thing, keep coming together and continue to try to do the right thing. And let's stop this senseless stuff that's happening across our great country.
No, you said it perfectly. And I think it starts, which it shouldn't have to, but with the athletes. I think when you see athletes forfeit games and cancel practices and say there needs to be have conversations about this issue, I think it really opens eyes to a bunch of people that maybe wouldn't have thought twice about it. But now when you have athletes coming in where really everybody loves sports and everybody comes together around sports, to see conversations happening when athletes say, no, this is not right, and people that might have not looked at it like that now are starting to think that way, it's a really important thing to look at, and sports does that for people.
Yeah, I have a lot of admiration for the people who have gone out there and tried to shine light on justice for all, social justice, whatever we want to, whatever the frame is for it, whatever the proper term. I just have admiration for them. I have admiration for the people in daily walks of life who don't have the same platform, who are trying to do the same thing. Their voices need to be heard as well, and equally so. And I think the admiration is really big for everyone trying to do it in the right way. Do it peacefully, do it calmly, work with each other. No one's advocating violence. No one's advocating doing it the wrong way. They shouldn't be, that's for sure. And I have an admiration for each and every person in this great world of ours that's trying to do it right and trying to live their life. And even if they're not out there in the streets marching or, holding up signs or whatever, they're just doing right with their neighbor, right? If they just see someone on the street and, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, can I help you with your grocery? But it's the little things that lead up to the big things. And I'm just looking forward to all of us continue to try and do the right things for each other.
Well, Charles, I appreciate you coming on and talking about any topic that I throw your way. I hope that we can talk soon. I hope we can talk in the future, and I hope you have a great start to the NFL season, whatever that's going to look like. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. It's awfully kind of you, and I wish you all the best as you embark on this new venture for yourself. It's an exciting time in your life and in your world, and I know you're going to be very, very successful, and I look forward to watching that and applauding you from afar. So all the best to you. You keep knocking them down and doing your thing. And like all of us, we'll all keep trying to get better and keep trying to grow in every aspect of our lives, whether it's professional, personal, whatever. That's what I'm trying to do. I know that's what you're trying to do. And I'm sure plenty of people who are viewing this will feel exactly the same way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you, Sean. Take care now.
Welcome back to Almost Game Day. I hope you enjoyed that Charles Davis interview. I will announce my next week's guest on probably Just Winning this week. So make sure you tune into Just Winning to see who I'll be interviewing next week. It's a big-time guest, and I'll just say this. It is somebody that works at ESPN. That's all I'm giving, all right? So make sure you go to Just Winning with John Whitley on Tuesday to see who that will be. All right, so every single week in my final segment, I'm going to be doing my picks. So my picks are pretty much going to be for the next couple days who I think will win the most important games in sports. This week, that is tonight and tomorrow night. So I'm going to go into who I think will win and why, and we're going to keep a tally throughout the year. We're going to hold myself accountable, okay? So for all of you on Twitter that want to talk crap to me if I get something wrong, please do. I want to be held accountable, all right? So first game is Bucs versus Heat. The Heat have completely made a fool of the Bucs this series. All right? And I said this. I said the Magic healthy would have put a couple games to 3 games on the Bucs because the Bucs just don't look like they're in it. They look like they're still getting their legs. Now, if you look at the last game against the Bucs versus Heat, the Heat, I think, outscored the Bucs 38-29 in the first quarter. But second through the fourth, the Bucs outscored the Heat every single one of those quarters. Now, granted, it was only by 2 to 3 points, but still, they outscored the Heat. They played better than the Heat in quarters 2 through 4. If the Bucs can actually come out and make it a tight game for the entire game, I think the Bucs beat the Heat tonight. I'm going Bucs. Now, the Heat look like the more physical and dominant team, so I would not be surprised at all if the Heat win tonight and sweep the Bucs. It's a weird situation. The bubble is definitely a weird place for everybody that makes great teams look kind of weak. And that's how we're kind of seeing it right now. The Bucs just do not look like the team that they did in the regular season. Nobody's contesting that. But we need to make sure that if they're going to go out, they're going to go out fighting. You saw in Game 2, they gave it a fight. Now we got to see if they can put it all together and win the game. I'm going Bucs here. Second game tonight, Rockets versus Lakers, game 1 of that series. Listen, okay, I know all you Rockets lovers. We got a couple former Rockets lovers in HTF over the years. Listen, guys, I know you're excited. You won a 7-game series against the Thunder. Oh, my God. Listen, congratulations. It was a hard-fought victory in Game 7. Nothing but love. But now you're in the big times. The Lakers kind of struggled to get out of the gates in the first game against Portland, but then they made Portland look like the little boy. I think that's going to be a similar thing that happens with the Rockets. I think this is a 4 to 5 game series with the Lakers completely obliterating the Rockets. The Rockets just don't look where I want them to look at this point. James Harden had a really off game last time. Of course, he made that great defensive play, but they do not look where they need to be. And I think the Lakers are way farther ahead of where they need to be. So I'm going to go Lakers here, and I do think it's like a 4 to 5 game series with the Lakers taking the cake. Saturday, Raptors versus Celtics. Obviously, we talked about the Raptors and the Celtics earlier in the show. The crazy shot by OG Anunoby. Listen, Raptors fans, I think, need to kind of be okay with the fact that they're probably not winning the series. They got lucky winning Game 3. This should have been a sweep. John Whitley called it. He said it was going to be a sweep if it wasn't for that 3. So I give John Whitley a lot of credit because I thought it was going to be about a 7-game series. But after last night, it doesn't look much of a series. It looks very stagnant. Just doesn't look like the Raptors are playing free. They're not making a lot of shots. I think the Celtics probably win tomorrow, and then I think they'll probably win Game 5 as well to take the series and move to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then the final game, Nuggets versus Clippers. I think this is a sweep. I think after seeing that Game 1, we talked about it, the Clippers just look much better than the Nuggets. At first, I thought the Clippers just looked really not interested to be there. Kawhi didn't look like it was something he wanted to do. And I thought that the Nuggets would come out and put a punch on them. I thought whoever was going to come out of that Nuggets-Jazz series was going to make the Clippers have a run for their money. Boy, was I wrong. The Clippers are just, they match up really well with the Nuggets, and the Nuggets just did not come to play at all in the playoffs. They made, Jamal Murray has saved them and kind of hid some of their more underlining problems. But I'm going to go Clippers here, and I think it's a sweep in this series. That's my thought on it. All right, that is Week 1, Episode 1 of Almost Game Day. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. My Twitter is at Sean M.R. Green. Please go follow there for all news on my show, who's going to be guests, and everything related to HTFN. I'd really appreciate it. And hey, follow Hitting the Field's main Twitter page. And subscribe down here. We really need your support. If you want to ask me any questions or get your sports take on air, please DM me on Twitter. We will get you on a Zoom call and get you on the show. So please do that. All right, guys. It's been a fun Episode 1. I hope you tune in for Episode 2 of Almost Game Day. It is Almost Game Day, folks. Enjoy the game.